You're listening to the WBT Podcast with Micah Lodge. Listen to all of our podcasts at www.wbtpod.com. Stay informed. Let's get started.
This is brought to you by Lodge & Co., a business and tax advisory firm where your success is our goal. Call us today toll-free at 888-681-1518 or visit us at www.lodge-co.com and learn more about what we can do for you. Lodge & Co., your source for sound business and tax services.
And welcome to the WBT. This is Michael Lodge. I'm so glad you've joined me. Over the last couple of years, I have driven across America 4 times. And the reason why I drive across America is because, one, I have 3 dogs that I have to take, but the other one is that in January is tax time for me, so I drive to my offices in Burbank, and I work through May. And I need to have a car there, and I also need to take my dogs with me because I have no one here at home to watch over them. So it takes me 3.5 days to drive across this great nation of ours, starting from South Carolina and ending up in Burbank, California. Now it's 3.5 days. And by the end of that time, I tell you, your butt is about ready to say he doesn't want to sit anymore, wants to get up and run around. I tell you, it is a long, long trip. But along the way, you get to see a lot of different things, and you get to meet a lot of different people. Now, from South Carolina, as you're going through Georgia and you're going through Alabama and Mississippi and all the states in between, the most fun part for me is to stop at coffee shops and listen to all the conversations that are going on around me. Now, if you stop in a coffee shop close to my office in Burbank, the conversation usually is about the business, it's about the entertainment, it's about what's happening in their dating life, it's all about nonsense, basically. And you begin to understand that between New York City and all the states in between until you get to California, people's thought process are totally different. If you stop in one of the states along the way and at a nice coffee shop, for one thing, everybody has their cell phones off. No one has their cell phone on. They are talking about each other. Normally, they have just gotten out of church, and they're talking about what the pastor had just said. If you stop around noontime at a coffee shop. And they're talking about what the pastor has said, and they add to it, they take out what they agree with, what they don't agree with. And then the conversation goes to family and what they're going to do for the remainder of the day on Sunday. Politics is spoken very little. But when they speak of California and New York, they really do. I have been called in some coffee shops. They've asked me, where are you from? And I said, well, I'm from California. And they said, oh, you guys are crazy out there. Well, in California, it is crazy. It's a crazy lifestyle. It's a go type of lifestyle. And everybody is so engulfed in their own life that they forget about those around them. The political views are way left. In fact, I would say that most Californians do not even care about politics. They don't pay attention to it. They don't get involved in it. Very few. So that's why California gets led astray, is because Californians who do have good lives do not get involved in their local politics. Now, there are some who, when they have riots, not riots, but when they have demonstrations or protests, it's usually about labor issues or it's about women's issues or something like that. And a lot of them are paid for. Now, I never thought that there were paid protesters. I never did. Until I went to the Philippines and found out that most everybody that protests there or riots there are from a paid political fraction of that community. And now I'm finding out that it happens here too. I guess I was just gullible, but it does happen. So those protesters normally are not protesting from the heart. They're protesting because they're getting paid to walk and to chant and to shout and make a scene. But I digress. When you're traveling across America and you're talking to all these people, the conversation goes into all different types of areas of life. What they do for work, what church do they go to, recipes, they love to give out recipes. And if you're in the South, they really know how to cook. Every Sunday here, like right now as I'm recording this, it's about 11:19 in the morning. And people are in church. Nothing's open. Everyone's at church. The parking lots are filled up. And there is a steeple almost on every corner, and all churches are filled. And I find that amazing because if you go to California, you find very little people in church. And I think that's where a lot of communities have lost their grip on things in their neighborhoods, is because no one is going to church anymore. No one is sitting down with their neighbors and getting to know each other in church and listening to the good word. I love traveling across America. I mean, I have to travel again in December. My dogs and I were packing up, getting ready for the tax season, and out to Burbank we go. But I love that trip. When the first couple of times I thought, oh my gosh, this is the longest trip, especially when you go through Texas. It feels as though that you're never going to get through Texas because it's such a big state. I have traveled through the dead of night and almost hit wild hogs along the freeway. But no matter where you stop, no matter where you go, across this great land of ours, people are willing to talk. They're interested in you, and you become interested in them. Because not only do they want to hear your story, but they've got a great story to tell also. And this whole storytelling part of our lives have disappeared, especially if you live in California. In California, it's about me, what I need, how do I survive. Everyone in California is in this survival mode of how they are going to live from day to day, pay their bills, pay their rent, pay their taxes, pay their gas pump fees, which are up in the $4 range. So everyone is trying to survive there. When my mom passed away in January of 2017, I had to take over the trust of the house and all of her things. And you know, when you take care of a trust, it takes a long time. When in the state, when you have to go through the probate courts and everything, because everything's got to be followed by the law, it takes a long time. I'm still in probate. But one of the things I decided to do with her old house, and it had become dilapidated, it had mice in it, I had to rip up all of the carpeting and everything and put in brand new wood floors. But I decided that I needed a porch. I have a porch on the back, but it's falling down and dying of old age. I'm tearing that completely down and building a new one. But I decided to put a porch on the front of the house. As I was driving through the South, I saw people sitting on their porch. Saturday nights, they have porch parties where neighbors come over and somebody picks up a guitar and they're singing, they're laughing. They may have a couple of beers, but they're communicating. They're all getting together as a community, as neighbors. And I said, you know what? I want to be part of that life. I want to be able to get involved in my community. So I started building a porch. I'm at the very end of my project now where I'm putting up the rafters and the roof. And pretty soon, I'll be able to have porch parties and have the neighbors over and maybe some pizza and coffee and watermelon and just talk. In fact, on Facebook, they have literally, people have set up their own sites for porches, 7 porches. And you'll see how people decorate their porches and how they make it very homey so that when the neighbor does come by, there's some place to sit and chat. I love that life, that part of life where you sit and chat and learn about each other. I don't like life in California, in Los Angeles, where you are constantly on the go. You get worn out. You get pissed off at life when you have to sit in traffic for 5 miles that you may have to sit for an hour and 45 minutes just to go 5 miles. So I built this porch. And I look forward to the time where I can sit down like the majority of people here in the South, and as you drive across America, conversation and communication is vital. Now, if you look at my front porch, it looks pretty ugly at the moment because we're still putting things on it. And I'm painting it at the moment. But what I like about my community is that I know that the neighbor across the road from me is always watching out for me. If he sees that I need help, he comes over and says, hey, do you need a ladder? Do you need this? He's always watching out. If I'm traveling, he's always watching the house for me. Next door neighbor, same way. In California, they don't care. If someone robs me, they don't care. They don't want to get involved. But I think that you and we have to start refocusing our life. We have to spend more time sitting down together. Now, we may not agree with each other politically, but if you're sitting down on the front porch with a glass of lemonade, it's really hard to get mad when you're discussing politics with a good glass of lemonade. I've seen it happen so much here where people will call you darling. Hey, darling, how you doing today? How you doing? What's happening in your life? Even if you go down to the local grocery store, you will meet somebody there. It happens to me all the time. I was in the store the other day, and a lady was having a really hard time getting dog food off the top shelf. So I climbed up on the shelves and got the dog food for her. But as we were getting this dog food, we began to understand and talk about each other's lives, and we found out what kind of dogs and how she had rescued these dogs and how these dogs are so important to her life. And we ended up being friends. We walked away and we were friends because we had talked. We had taken the time to chat with each other. I love when I go to the store here because they have these benches And you can see the old people sitting there talking to their neighbors. They're doing the chica chica or the chit chat and the gossip time. And then you will see pastors, and they you know that they're a pastor because they say, yes, I'm a pastor of such and such church, and they spend some time talking with you, inviting you to go to church. My point is that when you leave New York and you travel across this nation, you find a much different type of American than you find in New York and what you find in Los Angeles. I think that even though if you live in those two big cities, those two big metropolises, that if you don't have a front porch, you better find one. And maybe it's a local restaurant or maybe it's a local place, and you sit down and you chit-chat with anybody. Get to know people. Get to understand people. We see so much bickering and fighting going on in this nation every single day. We see bad tempers. We see grotesque corruption in politicians. The problem is that you and I put those people there. And I think that sometimes we have to make a decision that, you know what, maybe we made a bad thought process in choosing that person. If they're not accomplishing anything and they're willing to fight and bicker, those aren't the right people to be in our nation or to be representing you and me. We have a big problem in this nation where we're no longer communicating with each other. I want to encourage every single one of you. If you ever have a chance, get in your car, drive across America. Be willing to sit down and chit-chat. Don't rush it. There's no rush to get across America. Sit down at the coffee shop. Sit down in the church. Sit down at a store, and you will find that people are really loving people of this country. They want to know your story, and you want to hear their story. We can't always think that what we see happening in Washington, D.C. is happening across the nation, because it isn't. People are going about their lives. They're going to their churches. They're taking their kids to school. They're going to work every single day. They're involved in their PTA. They're coaching soccer. They're coaching basketball, baseball. They are tutoring students who need help. They are involved. They're involved in their communities and in their family life. It's a totally different nation out there. And I tell you this from my heart because I've experienced it as I've driven across America, is that America is a country of love. Americans will drop everything if they know that you're in trouble. If they know that you're being flooded out, they will take their boat and go over and get you. If they know that if they know that you need some food, they're willing to give you some food. America is filled with love. It's not filled with this hate that you see happening in New York and Washington, D.C. and Los Angeles. That is not America. America is a great country that is stronger through its communities and through its love and through the front porch where you get to sit and chat. So that was on my heart today because I just felt that over the last 15 days, we have watched this Kavanaugh thing going on and on and on. And we've seen lies being spouted out by politicians and calling people names and trying to destroy individuals' lives, that is not America. America is a place where they try to help others and they try to better people. They may not agree politically, but they survive together as a community, as a nation. What you've seen in this past 15 days in Washington, D.C. is the most evil of times. And it tells you how badly our country has gotten out of control politically. When you are willing to destroy a person's life through accusations and not have the decency to see the evidence to support any accusation, but you automatically call them a rapist and they're guilty immediately, that is not our nation. We believe in the presumption of innocence because that is the law, that is the Constitution, that is the Bill of Rights that have been given to you and I. And I've told you before, be careful how you treat your liberties. And be even more careful about how others treat your liberties. If they're trampling upon your liberties, it's time to make a change in Washington, D.C. And I think we've seen that throughout the last 4 months. How dirty and rotten it's become. Listen, my front porch is going to be finished pretty soon. And it can probably seat about 30 people on it. It's a big front porch. It goes from one side of the house to the middle of the house. And it's a very wide front porch with big white pillars that come down. You're invited to my front porch. You're invited to sit down and chit-chat. Talk about life. Talk about God. Talk about politics. Talk about your family. Talk about what's happening in your communities. My front porch is open all the time. When the front porch is done, I'm going to start doing my podcast from the front porch. Because that's where communication begins. And that's where you and I learn about each other. Again, I repeat this from my heart. Do not think what's happening in Washington, D.C., what's happening in New York, what's happening in California, that is not America. Get in your car and travel across it. Hear the sounds of the Indians in northern Arizona, in northern New Mexico. There's a radio station you can turn into, and they'll tell you what's... An old Indian man will come on, and he will tell you what's happening in their community. That's America. It's amazing. We have gotten out of control. We have gotten away from what life is really about. And you and I have got to spend more and more time on the front porch. This is Mike Lodge with the WBT. I will talk with you very, very soon.
Thank you for listening to the WBT with Michael Lodge. Join us again tomorrow as we explore more about business and taxes. Follow us on iHeartRadio and go to our podcast website at www.wbtpod.com and listen to all of our podcasts and read our blogs.
World of Business and Taxes on WBT.
This is brought to you by Lodge & Co., a business and tax advisory firm where your success is our goal. Call us today toll-free at 888-681-1518 Or visit us at www.lodge-co.com and learn more about what we can do for you. Lodge & Co., your source for sound business and tax services.